Oscar Jaitt of the Fruit Lovers Nursery. We have known Oscar for like 3 years. He was one of the first people we met when we came onto the island. We actually helped him take care of his fruit forest for like half a year or so. I think we worked for him, and yeah, we worked super duper hard, but we learned so much from him, and Daniel made sure to pester him with questions almost daily.
He did.
Yep.
All day, every day.
It's okay. My favorite topic, so I don't mind at all.
So today we're gonna give you a tour of Oscar's Rare Fruit Nursery and pick his brain about some of the plants that he's growing here. You want to talk about your seed business quick? Where we can find you?
Yeah, fruitlovers.com. So I'm specializing in rare and also endangered species from other countries, specifically and mostly from like Brazil and Borneo, which are like have the greatest diversity, but also from other countries, India, Southeast Asia, Africa, whatever is not already present in Hawaii, and I think might be a good fruit or something endangered of extinction. I bring it in, grow it out, and evaluate it, and then if it's good or produces well, then I'll add it to my seed list.
You were the guy that imported fruits for the first time to Hawaii, right?
Yeah, some of them. I also have to thank Frankie Sakia here. He was the original pioneer, Frankie Sakia, Frankie's Nursery on Oahu, and he's been doing it a lot longer than myself. And so some of the fruits, I bought plants from him when I first got here like 35 years ago and started growing them out. So he did some of the original introductions, and now the more rare stuff I'm bringing in myself right now. And that's as seeds. It's very hard to send over plants. So mostly it comes in as seeds.
Yeah, so you went to places like Brazil and got to eat the fruit, and then got the seed ready and did the paperwork, of course, got it inspected as you should, and yeah, imported those.
And now I have a lot more rare stuff like the Imperial Star Apple. I don't think Frank has that, and that's a very interesting fruit from Brazil, and we can talk more later about when I show you the tree if you like.
For sure. Cool.
Fruiting for the first time.
So it's a graft of different species?
Yeah, there's 3 different kinds on it.
Awesome.
And I forget what all they are.
So do you...
This one here is a giant Jaboticaba. Those are fat. I think the ones I gave you before weren't fully... You have to get it when they're soft.
That's good.
Good?
Mm-hmm.
See what a difference?
That's good. Pretty similar. This is the giant Jaboticaba. Pretty similar flavor, but...
Now the surprising thing is, I was told this takes at least 10 years to fruit. And it fruited in 5.
Really?
Yeah, I was walking by it and telling somebody, this thing probably won't fruit for another 5 years, and then look, there's a fruit on it.
Really?
Yeah. So that was neat. The other neat thing is it didn't die in the eruption. The Jaboticabas are very sensitive to this sulfur dioxide.
Sure.
One of them died, one of these blue Jaboticabas. So I only got 1 left.
So what's the...
I was babying them. I put a cage around every single one and a plastic cover to try to protect them, to keep them from getting killed. And I did pretty good, except for this one. Oh, there's some on the ground here. They have this little crown here at the top.
Oh, wow.
That's why Plinia coronata, the crown Jaboticaba.
Oh, nice.
I call it giant Jaboticaba just because of the size.
Sure.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Probably too close. On your shirt.
Is this your So the Jaboticaba is like shade, correct?
No, they will fruit in partial shade, but they actually do better in full sun.
Okay.
This is the blue Jaboticaba, and this is white Jaboticaba here, finishing fruiting.
So this fruits in as little as 3 years, correct?
No, that's the red or hybrid Jaboticaba here.
Okay.
It can fruit in as little as 2 or 3 years.
What's the two?
Now that one might be one of its parents, so it only takes 4 or 5, but this is the fastest one. This is the one for the impatient people,
Sure.
2 to 3 years. Most of Jaboticabas take 8 to 10 years.
Okay.
So this one's really, really fast.
And is the flavor comparable?
Yeah, it's very good. Yep.
And what are the two species that it's crossed? Do you remember?
That's not known. All is known that was done by a Japanese backyarder, and it's not really known what the two are, but it's thought that maybe the white Jaboticaba is one of the parents,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe Sabara or another regular type Jaboticaba. It's not really known 100%.
Gotcha. And which one's your favorite?
Which one is my favorite?
A question.
I don't really have a favorite. Probably so far these crown wings.
Yeah, they're bigger is better. They're just
Yeah.
as tasty.
And the other thing, there's like over 100 different types. It's really amazing how many different types of Jaboticabas there are.
Really?
When I first got here, there were only 2 basic types that people knew about, and they call it the small leaf and the large leaf. The small leaf being the Sabara, and the large leaf being Paulista, which makes a big fruit about this size, actually. And those were the only 2 types we had in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Brazil, and this guy showed me around his nursery, and I was just like jaw dropped. And I mean, I couldn't believe all the varieties he was pointing out. So what we had here was not even a drop in the bucket.
Mm.
It was like a quarter of a drop in the bucket.
Wow.
So, but now we're getting a lot of this stuff in, partly thanks to the internet and all these exchanges that are come about because of that.
Mhm.
So, but still, I have a very small selection of what's really out there. I planted a lot more in the big field, other kinds.
Gotcha.
What I think is that like nature is so diverse, it produces almost everything you can imagine, and even then some. So of course, there's going to be some trees
Weirdos.
that have fruits on the trunk.
Sure.
And then there's ones that on the tips, and then there's one in the middle,
Mhm.
and there's ones that even produce a fruit underground. I mean, what's the benefit of doing that, right?
Sure.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah, like this durian, the kurakura, the turtle durian. Sometimes it'll have fruit underground. Jackfruit also sometimes it'll have fruit underground because it's fruiting all along the base of the trunk.
Very strange.
I don't know. It's just like I think it's
It
just
just
like
happens.
some bizarre freak of nature things, mutations and things like that. Nature tries everything out to see what works best.
Yeah.
That's called adaptation, and that's why there's so much diversity. It's always trying to adapt because the environment is changing, everything is changing, and if there's a lot of diversity, and then the things that work best are going to multiply, and something will survive. Not everything will get wiped out in case some catastrophic thing happens, you know. So there's a difference between people and nature. People try to simplify everything, have everything simple, monocrop, you know, because it's easier for them to deal in their mind. But nature is incredibly complex.
Let people know of what not to do so they can do better. You
Yeah,
know.
most people like to talk about successes. But when I first got here, you know, I was really crazy about lychees. I planted a lot of them. And later I found out that this is really not the ideal climate for lychees, and that most lychees don't do well here. And a lot of these trees either don't fruit or they fruit very rarely.
Sure.
So it's kind of like live and learn, you know. I wish when I started there was so much information around, but it was really hard to get information pre-internet days. You had to get everything through books, and there were very few books that specifically talked about these topics that, you know, what's going to do well in Hawaii was
Right.
kind of difficult topic of them.
What do you recommend for this area and then different elevations?
Well, like I was saying before, I don't know if that was on the video, but the B3 Kwai Pink, it's the most consistent fruiting one. It fruits every single year. And now another one that I brought in from Florida is called Sweetheart. I don't think hardly anybody else is growing that here. I found that to be a consistent bearing one, and that was kind of surprising to me. It was just kind of a chance jackpot kind of thing. It's very good. It's large, really juicy, and I just recently air layered a bunch more to plant more out in the big field out there.
So does that mean they have a lower chill hour necessity? Is that why they do better here?
Yeah, they don't need as much stress. Chill hours is kind of tricky to talk about because lychees don't really need chill hours. Lychees need temperatures below 50 or 55, depending on what kind of lychee they are. Chill hours are like 45 degrees and less. That's for temperate fruits.
Gotcha.
So they actually, what they need is a stress. So you can stress them either through low temperatures in the wintertime, like below 55, or dry. Now here, wintertime tends to be our wettest time. It's actually wet all year long. And wintertime, like December, January, when they're flowering, is the wettest time. And so that discourages them from flushing out panicles of flowers. And so this is probably one of the worst places for lychees.
So that's why the late bearers do better, is because they're flowering when it's dry and hot during the midsummer, maybe.
Well, no, not necessarily, because there's some early bearers like Sweetheart that don't seem to mind and will. There's lychees that are more adapted to tropical situations. In fact, there are lychees that are totally tropical.
Really?
And I went to Thailand once and through great difficulty collected like 3 or 4 different types of tropical lychees. And I was so happy to get them. I had to get a friend who's Thai to take me around and translate everything. It's very difficult there with the language. And then when I got here, they confiscated everything because there was one bug and I couldn't identify what kind of a bug it was.
Oh, darn.
So they said they couldn't spray it with anything because they didn't know what spray was effective. So all those plants got confiscated. And after that, they changed the rules where you required a phytosanitary certificate.
Sure.
At that time, you didn't need one. Everything was inspected upon arrival. So now it's practically impossible to go there and redo what I did. So that was all lost.
Sad.
Darn.
Yeah. Plants are trickier to get through than seeds because, bugs can hide more easily. In fact, the inspection station guy, when I was crying, told me next time you should remove all the leaves or most of the leaves because it's easier for bugs to hide. And they're actually looking at everything through a magnifying lens, and then they have you really sweating when they put this stuff under a microscope, because when you put plants under a microscope, you probably will find something or other,
Sure.
Right.
And did you plant any lychee from seed?
I haven't, just because air layers and cultivars are so easy to access here.
Sure.
It would be kind of, I hate to use the word dumb, but it would be kind of dumb because lychee is one of the oldest cultivated fruits.
Yeah.
And selections have been made for over 1,000 years, both in China and in other parts. So we already have really, really good lychee. So your chance of coming up with a good one are pretty low, unless you have a really big plot of land and you plant a whole lot, and then you might get ones that are more adapted to your climate. That's the main thing here, get ones that are adapted to our climate. Lychee is originally from southern China, where in the wintertime it's cool and dry, just the opposite here. And in the summer it's quite hot and steamy. We got that part covered. Hot and steamy is okay. And the dry, and the lychee is one of these plants that's not well adapted. Some plants don't mind. You move them to a different climate and they still do fine. And other plants are more fussy, like durian, mango, lychee. They like a certain kind of climate, and if you take them out of that climate, they just don't do well.
Sure. Yeah.
That's Aki.
Aki, really?
Yeah, that was like my fastest growing
Wow.
plant. And right behind it is the Amazon tree grape.
Oh, the one that looks like a cecropia.
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah, I
Isn't
know.
it like cecropifolia is the name?
In fact,
a good
Gabriella
one.
hired somebody to clear weeds, and he cut that. He thought it was cecropia.
Ah.
Another one where I almost cried.
Do you have the gummy worm cecropia?
Huh?
The
Do I-
gummy worm cecropia?
Yeah. Oh, look. You know what these are? This is one you might want to get on the video.
The apple?
What kind of flowers are these?
Durian?
Yes,
Aha!
you got it. Durian.
Wow. Oh yeah, it's. I see a.
You see the
Couple
flowers?
fruit?
Look, there's some right here. Look, down lower.
Oh wow.
I should probably go up there and hand pollinate, but I haven't done that yet.
Go up. That's a long way up there.
Yeah, that's a long ways up, but this one's not so high up. Look, there's flowers all the way down this limb here.
So durian is one of the fruits that could fall from 50 plus feet and be totally undamaged, correct? Except
Exactly,
for
because it falls when it's not fully ripe. It's still
Sure.
hard.
sure.
The tree is really smart. It drops its fruit like 3 or 4 days before it's fully ripe, and then it gets riper and it starts gassing out, and it's actually sending the signals through the smell to big animals to come eat it. And then when they come eat it, it's already split.
Sure.
They can get into it, they eat it, and they spread the seeds. That's
Cool.
why they have the strong smell.
Totally.
So these cats, elephants, whatever,
Orangutan.
whatever
Sure.
big animals can come, they smell it from like a mile away. They know
Wow.
they're dropping, and they come and they spread the seeds.
So durian can be planted on maybe like a 30-foot plus spacing, maybe more, and you don't need to prune it. You can just let it go and harvest off the ground, essentially.
Yeah, they will drop. It's not a problem unless you're standing under the tree. Then you have a really big problem.
Sure.
So, yeah, they will drop. It doesn't damage the fruit. You might want to keep it small if you have a small yard, just because
Sure.
they do get really big and they like full sun, and the other trees might shade it out. Like there's
Sure.
some shading here from the
Yeah.
other trees. So what it did is just it shot up to get more sun, and it's higher up than
Sure.
the other trees. But then I can't hand pollinate those.
Okay.
So that's another
Yeah.
reason to keep them low, is to make easy pick-ins. You can check the fruits
Sure.
and you can pollinate, so.
And maybe induce earlier flowering.
Earlier flowering, and also I've heard that if you prune them in a certain way, you'll get more fruiting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tying the branches down.
Yeah. And
Cutting
also
them.
if you hand pollinate, you're going to get big, full-size fruit. Whereas if they're self-pollinated, not all the sections are going to fill out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the major pollinator here for the durian?
We don't really know that, but it's suspected that it's ants.
Really? So is
Yeah.
that so? It seems like we don't really know why they don't fruit regularly here. Is that maybe part of the problem? Is the lack of pollinators?
No, the real problem, I think, is they need a short dry spell, like the lychee, a little bit of stress to initiate flowering. And a lot of times when it's raining, cats and dogs all the time, you're not going to get flowering.
Sure.
So usually, like right after a dry spell, though, it'll
Okay.
initiate the flowering.
So maybe threaten your durian trees or something?
Tell them you're
Well,
shutting down.
That's a good point. Girdling probably would work. Girdling is the safe way of threatening. If you know how to do it right, you can girdle your lychees, your mangoes, your durians to stress them to get them to flower and fruit.
Sure.
Mhm.
Long
And it
run.
does work. There's been studies and
Do
it's
you-
worked. But you don't want to, like, some people say, run it over with the tractor, pound nails into it. Honestly, that you don't want to do those things. That's only going to damage your tree.
Sure.
Know? You have to do it very carefully and right. And you
Sure.
have to do it at the right time of the year, too.
Oh,
If
that's
you
good.
stress them at the wrong time of the year, they're still not going to flower.
After they're done fruiting, correct? Is
Yeah.
the time to
Yeah.
prune?
Yeah. September, most lychees fruit like in May, June. So that will be like 3 months almost after fruit. And not only fruiting, but fertilizing right after the lychees fruit. You want to fertilize them. And then wait around Labor Day. If they're not a good variety, if you got a good variety like the B3, they're going to fruit anyway. So if you have a variety that never fruits, you need to girdle and you girdle like certain branches, not the whole tree, like about a third of the tree. You girdle either by cutting with a hacksaw, or a easier way, I think, is with a wire. Is putting on kind of like basically a tourniquet.
Sure.
It
And then it
tightens
grows
up
into it.
as the tree
Sure.
gets bigger, and it stops the flow of certain nutrients, and that's what stresses it. With that technique, you just have to be careful to remember to remove it. If they're flowering, then you can remove it.
Yeah. Okay.
Gotcha.
That's a good tip. I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah,
And do you also withhold nitrogen during the fruiting flowering season for lychee and mangoes?
absolutely. In the wintertime, you don't want to fertilize them at all. And if you live in a place where they need watering, you don't want to water. This is why Kona is much better for lychees, honestly, and Kau, because you can withhold watering during that time, and that also stresses them, like I was saying before. So the best thing is combination of cold and not so much watering. You know, those two things together is going to make the tree explode with flowers.
And then maybe potassium and phosphorus as well.
Yeah, because that's going to make the fruits taste better, and they'll set better too. And also having a beehive.
Aloha, everyone. I'm sure you could tell, but that is just the part one of a very long, insightful conversation that we had with Oscar. As we always do, we learned a lot with him, and there is more to come. Like, did you know mangosteen seeds aren't actually seeds? Yeah. Anyway, stay tuned. If you're interested in some of the plants we talked about, we actually have some of the giant Jaboticaba, for sure the fast growing, and maybe a white in our nursery. They'll be ready to sell in November or January sometime. So if you live on Big Island on the Hilo side, come check us out at Maku'u Market. We sprout a bunch of plants from Oscar, and we actually have those for sale at our booth. So feel free to come by. We are located right here. And yeah, we're there most Sundays. Stay tuned for part two. Thanks.